If you've ever dislocated your shoulder and you still want to train, you still want to play, this video is for you. We are looking at Fernando Tatis right here. Recently, about a week ago at this point, he went up to bat, swung, missed. I believe he was struck out on this and essentially dislocated his own shoulder here. We'll show it right here. He whips around, dislocates his shoulder, and it basically just pops out. He's basically whipped around here. The bat is coming around through the back. What happens at the very last second, you see this elbow kind of hyperextend, and that shoulder just kind of pops right up through there. And that's what kind of causes him to fall down. It's a shoulder subluxation, or the labrum kind of pops out of socket, and it can get a little bit of a tear in the labrum. It is a subluxation or a shoulder dislocation. A lot of people have had this, and yet they can still work out, or they feel like they can work out. So I've got a couple of things I want to show you today. What are the best ways to deal with this if your shoulder has dislocated and you still want to work out, but you're afraid that it might dislocate again? This is what we're going to do today. This is what we're going to cover. Sorry, Fernando, but thank you for the topic. Welcome to the Anatomy of Therapy. I'm Dr. John Cybulski, and today we're getting into dislocated shoulders and how to stabilize your shoulder after a dislocation or a labral tear. So a labral tear can sound sketchy, but it's not actually that sketchy, right? A labral tear, a labrum is just the covering over the humerus. So let's see this guy right here, kind of the top of the arm right here. Basically, there's a little bit of a covering over on top of it, right? And so when that pops out, there's a little bit of a shred that'll kind of come with it. But that's like someone kind of nipping through your hair. It's not great for your haircut. It's not great for the shoulder, but you can train with it. So Fernando and the Pirates, is it the Pirates? Yes. No, good gosh, it's the Padres. Why did I think the Pirates? It's the Padres are not going to opt for surgery. So not every subluxation is surgical. Even at this high level, Fernando can go in and get a surgery tomorrow. It's not a big deal. But many of these are non-operable. The best option is actually to not have surgery and just to train it and rehab it. So what are the ways that we can train and rehab it? The main injury I want to go back to is how his arm is kind of on an outstretched here and his thoracic spine is twisted back here. So his arm is extended, horizontally abducted, externally rotated. It's in an extreme position, obviously. So if this shoulder is going to be in an extreme position, we need to make sure it has an extremely strong foundation. And that is what we're going to go after today. There's one other concept that we need to switch to, and that is open chain and closed chain. So at the feet right here, this is called closed chain. These muscles of the feet up are working closed chain. This arm is working open chain. You can see it's not towards the ground. However, it does have a weight. So it's a half open, half closed. Now, when Fernando's arm was way back here, this was open chain. So this is an arm moving on a torso. Technically, the torso and the arm are kind of working together in this position, basically. They're both doing stuff. But what happens here is that we need the combination of the torso and the shoulder to kind of go together. So what we're going to do is set a good foundation at the torso. We're going to hold a kettlebell up. We're going to hold a kettlebell at the side, and we're just going to march. Easiest exercise in the world, just march. So we're practicing on getting everything to be stable, the whole torso to be stable, right? And then the shoulders will be very stable as well. So these shoulders are not whipping around. The same thing is going to go for this guy. Basically want to hold that shoulder very still and then move everything else underneath it so that the shoulder can reactively stabilize. So the reason that it kind of pops out at the very end is that the rotator cuff muscles that hold the shoulder in place basically fire and work because they are fast, not necessarily because they are strong. So we need to train it reactively, which is why Adriel Mays over here is stepping up, and these shoulders are going to have to reactively stabilize in order to keep those shoulders in place under the changing ground of him lifting his foot up over and over. So you can do the combination of one weight up and one weight down, and then lifting one leg versus the other, so you're changing the stability of the core. And then we're going to try to hold these arms just very still, especially with a recent dislocation like Tatis is suffering from here, you don't want his shoulder to do a lot of movement. So the traditional kind of I's, Y's, and T's, where his arm is kind of like going out, these classic rotator cuff exercise where there's a lot of shoulder movement, that's not really something that you want in the beginning of injuries like this where he's kind of out right now. You want to strengthen up the shoulder, but you want to do it passively. So these shoulders are obviously getting a lot of work in them, but again, passively and very safely. So shoulder stability first. This is the one exercise that's a little bit tricky, but I really want to go over because it's one of my favorites. It's called the Russian arm bar. But you'll also notice how this position with it, where his arm is kind of behind him here. Let's go to a different pitch. Where his arm is kind of behind him here is very similar to where Tatis's arm is also kind of behind him and he's twisting around. You'll also notice how this leg is also kind of up. So his left arm is back, his left leg is up, and then we go over here and we have the same thing. The left arm is back, the left leg is up. So this is a very reminiscent picture of each other. But in this exercise, what Adriel is doing here, let's start at the very beginning. So at the very beginning, he puts a band around the feet. You can kind of see that down here. Let's make that red. You can see that down here. So he's pulling that band up. The band is anchored to his other foot. So it's dorsiflexion, leg flexion on that left side, which will start to engage the hip flexor and the obliques. Once that has been locked in, he will roll. He'll maintain that hip flexion. He will roll into thoracic extension, which should resemble this on this thoracic rotation extension on Tatis. Except we have a stable component in the arm rather than a mobile component. So we're flip-flopping the mobility from the thoracic spine to the shoulder, and we're making the shoulder the stable thing in this position. Where in this position, obviously the shoulder has become so unstable that it has dislocated, right? So we need to kind of flip the equation and get back to this one, where we're holding it up, and then again, you see him kind of pulling this leg up down here so that he can engage the abs here, and this will lock down the ribs on this side. On this side, what happens, one of the conjectures is that when that arm goes back, not only does the shoulder dislocate at the arm, the shoulder, but the ribs kind of go up on that side as well. So if you ever seen like a rib flare, if you lay on your back and you kind of see, let me show you here, where your ribs kind of pop up right in the front, and there's those little bumps right at the very bottom of the ribs. That's a rib flare. Those ribs are overextended. In this exercise, they say if those ribs go up, the shoulder's going to go up. That means the shoulder's in a not advantageous, a dislocated, far away from the core position. So him flexing this leg up activates these obliques, holds the rib down so that this shoulder is stable, and then we also keep the shoulder stable at the kettlebell. So we've created a stable base. We've created a stable base for the shoulder to move on. There, we roll, and then the arm is staying stable. So what really moves here is the scapula and the rib cage. Now we've got the rotator cuff nice and stable. This exercise, the Russian arm bar, is absolutely fantastic to create shoulder stability, specifically into this kind of horizontal and extended position, which is the foosh, the falling on an extended hand position where your arm goes back and the shoulder goes forward. Except in this position, we are strengthening that shoulder forward. And you're not really moving the arm, you're stabilizing it here. So if you have dislocated your arm, I would start with, especially if you're in an acute phase, start with these kind of farmer's walks, kettlebell carries. In this farmer's walks, kettlebell carries, he's just walking laterally side by side and just marching. Obviously, he's in the house. So you want to walk side by side, but those shoulders are getting a lot of work in them, but they are staying very stable. Then we can do a staggered stance, staggered hold, and a staggered march to challenge the alternate obliques. Right? And then the very last one, once you start to feel that the shoulders calm down, you're not worried that it's going to pop out on you, right? We go back to this one where we are, come on, here we go. And we are engaging that leg. We are locking down the abs, the ribs, and then we are working on this horizontal stability that reminds us of that dislocated place, but we are keeping our shoulder stable here, and that's the best. If you guys have comments, please leave them below. Hit the like button if you haven't already. We've got a podcast. Link is below. We've got a Patreon. That link is below. I've got a Substack where I write an article every week. That'll be below. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. I see that I've got 20 seconds left before the 10-minute mark. So I'm going to go another 10 seconds because the YouTube algorithm likes 10 minutes for whatever reason, and we have to play that game. So leave a comment, just say, yo, thank you. Help the page grow, people helping people. Have a wonderful day. We just hit the 10 minutes. Peace.